These guys are pretty much most of the books I've made. There's a couple missing from there, which I'll show you. But today I'm going to talk about something about this. Right, guys, I don't normally like doing these videos, but just to give you straight away what it is, basically I'm going to now prove to you or show to you how much the Historical Ninjutsu research team or what we do is from original documentation. Now, normally I don't do these videos, but I'm going to do this because it's easy for me to prove this point. So as of 2020, I stopped engaging with the enemies, you say. I got a lot of flack from the Tokugawa, from the Togaryu people. I get a lot of flack from the Takamatsu people, basically. And what's nice is that a lot of that has gone, and it's almost gone. But there's like about 3 or 4, maybe 5 people who still hang on to the "We hate Anthony Cummins." And I've been getting some messages of people saying, "Oh, the newest thing everybody's saying is that Anthony Cummins' team doesn't use original documentation; they only use published books." And I can prove this is the most ridiculous lie. So it's like ridiculous. So what I'm going to do, so I very quickly went through every scroll we've published. There's probably a couple missing, but they're the scrolls we've published. That's scrolls we've published from the original manuals. That's scrolls where we've used books to help us and the original manual. So first is the original manual and then the book that's been published to help us with it. And that is the amount of manuals we've translated where we've only done it from a published book that somebody else has done before in Japanese, and they've put the things there. So we'll talk about that. So I'm going to read them to you, and I'm going to make, hold on, let me reach and get this book. I'm going to make a challenge. So the number one thing, first of all, is that it's said out there that the historical research team didn't do the Bansen Shukai from the original documents. They did it from a published book. You point to me a single published book of the Bansen Shukai that was available before this was produced. This was produced in 2013. Now, if you're going to jump to Nakashima's book, check the date it was published. It's about a year, 2 years after this. Nakashima was meant to work on this book with us, and I'm not going to break his privacy here, but something happened in his family which stopped him working on the book. So we said, well, we're going to carry on and do it, and we published it, and that made him about 2 or 3 years later than us, or whatever it was. But basically, he was a little bit miffed that we didn't wait for him, but he said at the time he is literally going to not be able to do it. So we just can't, and he assumed we wouldn't do it. So we did this. Not only did we do it from the version that you can easily get, the Ohara version, but we actually did it from another version as well, which we found, we went round Eager, and there's videos of me doing it where we found little extra bits, but they're pretty much the same, so it didn't really matter. We used the major text for this. So challenge for that gentleman out there who thinks that he's saying the right thing. You find a book that is the Bansen Shukai before we publish this. This is the first Bansen Shukai that was ever published anywhere in the world, based off the Ohara version. There are now I've found another bit about a year after we published this. I found one more chapter that goes into this, maybe 2 more chapters, and one of them nobody knows about. There's a hidden missing chapter from this that is only, if you're clever and you can put it together, it's easy to know the name of. But where do you find it? I found it. Just wait. So hopefully there'll be an updated version of this, hopefully. So let's go through the scrolls that are absolutely... So sorry guys if this is a bit of a boring video. If you're not a sort of Anthony Cummins lover or hater, then it's probably not going to be of interest to you, so crack on. But here's the scrolls. Now these have never been put into book form, published before us. So there's Heika Jodan. We actually found that scroll. Heigu Yoho, we found that scroll. Ippei Yoko, we found that scroll. Heieki Yoho, we found that scroll. Bansen Shukai, nothing was available before we published ours in English. We're the first in the world. Shinobi Hiden Volume 5, nobody even knew Volume 5 existed till we found it. Of all the 50 years the Shinobi Hiden was there, nobody clocked there's a Volume 5. We found it. Rodanshu, that is actually quite a famous one, but nobody's published it. Gunjutsu Kikigaki, we did that. 16 Tools of the Sawamura family, we did that. Not only did we do that, I actually gave it back to the Japanese in typed out format. So they use the typed out format that Yoshie did from Sosho. Youuchi no Sho, We brought that one out. 16 Poems of Muboshi Ryu, we did that one. That was Miyako. Mizukagami Oral Traditions. Now, the Mizukagami should be in this actual list, but actually Miyako did it from scratch. She typed it all up, did all the social, and then literally a couple of weeks later found a book with it typed up, and we're like, but it was a very, very rare book. So we actually did that work, but just to be fair, I'm going to put that in the non-book, even though we did it, because I can't prove we didn't. But we didn't. So but there you go. But I will give you that one. The Gunbai Hiden, done by us. Yokan Kajo Denmoku. Basically, the next ones are Chikamatsu scrolls. Nobody even knew about these ones, these that were in there. But there is different versions somewhere else. But they only came into typed up version on a very rare book to get in Japan, which is self-published 5 years after we did Iga and Koka. So these were only got by us, published by us, and typed up by us. This is the Yokan, so as I say, Denmoku, Yokan Denkai, Yokan Kudensho, Yokan Rigen, and the Koka Shinobi Den Miraiki, which is the Kimura's like whinging, basically. Then you've got the Kokuryu Densho, which was from, it's in my Hattori Hanzo book. So basically it's in there. We found that. Actually, Krista from Budo Ryu paid halves with me so she could have that scroll. We actually found it, and she can confirm. She actually had to pay half of it because it was Kokuryu. I went halves with her. We've published some of the Akutagawa Ryu stuff. Never been published before. Now, the Gyoshu, not the Gunpo Joshu, the Gyoshu, never been published before. Hattori Dosun Ichiryu, never been published before. Fukushima Ryu, 2 scrolls, never been published before. Sekiguchi Ryu, never been published before. So for that gentleman out there who's saying they don't go, our team does not go from original documentation, I want you to find me every single one of them in published form in Japanese that predates our publications. You can't, because you're wrong. Okay, those that we used, mainly the original scroll first, but then we used a published one to check. So what happens is they use the main scroll, then check against the published version in Japanese to check. So I can't even read. Oh, Sonshi no Heiho. So I did The Art of War. I obviously, I put this at the top because I used mainly English translations in English, but I did get the original in published format, typed up in Japanese, and had Miyako check parts for me, so that's in there. Now the Shoninki, the Shoninki we used Nakashima's book and another version later on, and the original. That was a mixture of everything. The Shinobi Hiden was actually volumes 1 to 4. We used the original, but oh god, somebody's ringing my bell. Hold on. Sorry, that was the postman just came. They always come when I'm blinking a bloody video. So, Zohyo Monogatari, which is the basically the Foot Soldier Tales. We used the book for that and the original. Musha Monogatari, the female stories, yep. Now, the Mizukagami, I said we actually didn't, but I'm going to give you that one because I can't prove it. Bishamonten from Muboshi Ryu, Yawara Joe. We actually went through Yawara Joe, the original in social, because we got, we basically got in fact, you see, this is the problem. The Mizukagami, I got the social group together to go through, and unfortunately, after we'd finished it, we found the book, which had it typed up anyway. So that was a bit of a waste, but hey ho. Yawara Joe, Shinkan no Maki, which was so difficult. The Kaishaku scroll and the Seppuku scroll, so that was quite difficult, but I think we found extracts of it in the other book. I'm not quite sure exactly. Yoshimori's 100 Poems have been out in Japanese for a long time, and the Gunpo Gyoshu we did in both. So those are the ones that we published and we did from the original, and we had a backup. It's been published. Now, the reason we don't just go for the published version is because we want to check it and I want to make sure it's right. So the only one that was actually done from the original without we didn't get like that was done from a Japanese typed up version is the Shoka no Hyojo, which was the same author, Ogasawara Sakun. He's the same author that did Gunpo Gyoshu, but it was not really worth hunting out the scroll, because this is put together by a really good team. They did Gunpo Gyoshu and then they did his Shoka no Hyojo, and they're really good, and they've got the original there, all the footnotes are there with some like explanations, so it's really good, very good to use. Now, So there you go, guys. So the next time that gentleman is going around the internet saying it's not used, you send him this video and I challenge him. Find them. Find them in Japanese. Find the Bansen Shukai before we published it in Japanese. Find it if you can. So, right. Okay, from there. So why does it matter? Actually, it matters and it doesn't matter. So I would say, even though I love the Shoninki, which is True Path of the Ninja, I love that book. We relied too heavily at the first time on Nakashima because it was our very first book we did. So we relied on Nakashima and we relied on the original and him, but we sort of like went, oh, he says in this footnote that, so maybe he's correct because he was like this figure in there. And for the second one, the red version, we corrected a lot of those things because we were not so sure on it. So actually it does matter sometimes because they can lead you down the wrong path, but sometimes it's amazingly helpful. So remember, now this is where you've got to be careful. There's a relationship going on here. There's a relationship. There's a group of people who love shinobi. I'm one of them. You're probably, if you've stayed to this point of the video, you love them. You love samurai and you want to read original manuals. You're like, I really want to know what the samurai ninja said. I want to read a manual. So you don't have a direct relationship with me, but you have a relationship with the text and Fujibayashi and the authors because you're invested in them. Now, what you need to know is, because you don't speak medieval Japanese, that is that close. So that's your relationship. So what I need to do, my part in it all, is to make all the mechanics work on all the machinery of getting that physical piece of paper at a library where we photograph the old scroll, so a physical old scroll, and then we've got to go through Yoshie to start pulling it out, or Miyako, and then it comes to me, and then we backwards and forwards all the way through to get it as polished as possible. That then moves on to the editor, and the editor says, well, can we say this and can we say that? Which means I go back to Miyako and Yoshie and say, well, can we change this word to this? And they're like, no, the connotations have changed. And say, okay, we can't change that word. We can't. For hundreds and hundreds of pages, I do hours and hours a day. And then it goes to the publisher, it gets checked, it goes off, it gets printed, and then at the other end, at Amazon or at the shop, you guys are buying that, and you form your relationship with Fujibayashi Yasutake, and you're like, okay, or you form your relationship with Natori and Natori, I was going to say, form your relationship with Isui Sensei, Natori. So that's why what matters is what do you get the best at the end. So actually, the best ones are this way. Those that we can find that somebody else has done a lot of research into and helped along, but we have to be careful that their research is not incorrect. So what we do is check it all ourselves. So that leaves us into this column where we check theirs, we check ours, we check everything. And then these are where there's nobody involved but me and Yoshie or me and Miyako. That's it. So you've got to be careful, guys. There are very few Anthony haters out there anymore. And as of 2020, I said I no longer deal with them. I said it at the beginning of the year. But this was a really good opportunity to show you the vast level of work that goes into it. So will the challenge be accepted? You've got to find every single one of those in a published Japanese book. And I can show you, as you know, all my books, I've just filmed them. They're all published there. There you go, with the dates, with the scrolls, with the titles. Challenge. Go for it.